hi, this is Lou.
Hey Lou, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. The first thing I want to say is I've noticed popping up in a couple of different bars that you have a cocktail named after you called the Lou Diamond Phillipsto.
I have not enjoyed a Lou Diamond Phillips. I'm going to have to track that down.
Well, it's champagne and white tequila and blueberry schnapps and blue curacao.
Wow, that'll get you where you're going fast.
Yes, it will. Now, I want to know, where is Henry Standing Bear going fast this season?
Henry Standing Bear has got some very, very interesting things going on for him in season 2. First of all, I have a love interest played by Machen Amick, who is just absolutely gorgeous. You know, she's up in my status a bit, I got to say. So he has a bit of a contentious love story going on, but also I think his friendship with Walt not only deepens, but Henry is going to be faced with where his loyalties really lie. There are a few people on the reservation who question where his heart really is, and you know, Henry starts to feel that kind of pressure because he's got, you know, a foot in both worlds, in the white world and the red world, and he gets caught in the middle an awful lot with some of these stories.
Well, is there an overall narrative arc of this season that kind of sets it apart from season 1?
We're going to be investigating a lot of things that we introduced, you know, in the first season. Walt is running for re-election, and meanwhile, you know, he's being investigated by a Denver, you know, police officer played by Charles Dutton concerning the events surrounding his wife's death. And there's a lot that has yet to be revealed. Henry is certainly complicit in that, so we start feeling the pressure. I mean, the overall theme of this year is, you know, that there's a storm coming, and how do people respond in the face of adversity, in the face of really inclement weather. And you know, we're really investigating, you know, what everybody's made of, and you know, their moral backbone, if you will.
Well, and then how is Standing Bear taking that? Is he taking it good or better than the other people, or a little bit worse?
Well, the interesting thing about Standing Bear is he's always had this sort of Zen calm, and they're shaking him up a little bit this year. I mean, they're getting under his skin, and you know, we will see Henry a little more frustrated than usual, a little more. Yeah, I think nervous about you know, the storm that's surrounding them. So it's nice. It's nice to shake it up and to not be as implacable as he usually is.
Well, and I think a natural question for you during the first season was, obviously a lot of people asked you about going back to books for this character. When you're in a season 2 and you've done a whole season as a character and you've established him for yourself, do you find that you go back to the book, or do you kind of stay away from that because now you have your idea of who this guy is and how he lives and breathes on the screen?
Well, certainly, the books are my touchstone. They're my Bible, if you will. I've actually read all 9 of them, and Craig Johnson and I have become very, very good friends. He sent me an advanced copy of A Serpent's Tooth, which will be coming out in June. So the funny thing is I'm reading them as much for enjoyment now as anything else, because I absolutely love Craig's writing. I also wrote the foreword to a collection of short stories he has coming out based on these characters. What's interesting is that I'm always finding little tidbits in the book, you know, that I can incorporate into the character. Certainly I'm bringing things to it that perhaps, you know, were not originally in Craig's conception. But Katie Sackhoff and I were talking about this. We're actually seeing idiosyncrasies of ours creep into Craig's, I think, perception of these characters as well. So it's a very symbiotic relationship.
Well, and that brings up an interesting thing which we saw happen with Justified, where some of that show all of a sudden was written into a book after the fact. And are you saying we are seeing kind of that same sort of symbiosis, I guess, between the book and the TV world here with Longmire? A
little bit, and they will always be separate worlds, and I'm very, very proud of our writers, especially, you know, John Coveny and Baldwin, who are also our producers. They've so captured Craig's milieu, if you will. They have created Absaroka on the screen as vividly as Craig has created it in the books. But, you know, one can't help but, I think, influence the other to a certain extent. And even though our stories are a little different, even though none of the plot lines are similar to what's in the book, you can certainly see the inspiration. And I will say that the premiere episode on Monday, May 27th, is the one episode that borrows most heavily from one of Craig's books, and that is Hell is Empty. It's a manhunt in the middle of a blizzard. But you know, as always, we take it off in a slightly different direction.
And whenever they send me the press release for Longmire, as they did last season and this season, they always omit something that I love, and that's your character on the Aquabat. That's coming back to return.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I was hoping to return to Southland too, and they never called. So, you know, the Sun Spirit was a lot of fun, and Indigo, my 5-year-old, saw me on the screen, and her eyes got big, and it was one of those moments where it's like, but how can you be in two places at once? So, you know, I'm always open to that, and I'm friends with the Yo Gabba gang, with the Aquabats. So, you know, anytime I can put a smile on a kid's face, I'm happy to show up.
Well, and you bring up Southland. I absolutely loved your character on that show, and I too waited the whole season 5 for you to show back up, and you never did. And I talked to some of the various different people that work on that show, and their intent, they said that they were hopefully going to bring you back for season 6, and the show got canceled, which is disappointing for fans everywhere. And I'm wondering, did you have sort of a thought about where you wanted to see that character be when we returned to him?
You know, he was such a bigger-than-life character. I mean, I just had a blast doing it, and that show was certainly one of my favorite shows on television. I think the best cop show we've seen in a long, long time, so obviously I'm saddened by the fact that it was not renewed. Those writers are so innovative, and that camera crew, by the way, is also our camera crew on Longmire. Which would explain, you know, how we managed to be not only gritty, but have this great epic scope to our show. And Chris Chulak, you know, the executive producer and director of Southland, directed the pilot for Longmire and another episode, and will actually be back this season directing an episode for us. So it was a bit of, once again, a symbiotic relationship. I just had such respect and such trust. Whatever those writers wanted to throw my way would have been fantastic.
So, and kind of what you're saying, too, is people that haven't caught on to Longmire yet, who just absolutely loved Southland, should watch Longmire, because there is a connection there.
There is, you know, we have some of the same DNA, but we're obviously two very, very different shows. Whereas, you know, Southland captured the inner city grid of Los Angeles. The character of Wyoming and the fictional county of Absaroka is certainly a character in Longmire, and you feel the character's connection to the land. You feel their history and the lives that they led before we started, you know, getting to know them on the screen.
And Sean Hattasy showed up last season. Is there anybody else going to show up this season?
Well, you know, we had Sean Hattasy on the show. C. Thomas Howell also did a guest spot for us. So, you know, now that Cudlitz is you know, not doing anything as far as I know, love to have him. He would fit right in. Ben McKenzie, love them all. You know, so the one thing that's really wonderful about our guest stars is that they have meaty roles to take on, and our producers are always looking for the best actors out there.
Well, and finally, I'm going to ask you about the Tao of Surfing. Mm-hmm. I know you've directed TV before in the past. This, I think, is your first theatrical feature. Can you just kind of tell me about what we can expect from that and what your experience working on that as both an actor and a director were like?
Actually, it's my fourth film as a director on feature-length films. I did a feature-length film for Hallmark a couple of years ago called Love Takes Wing. Also co-wrote and directed Dangerous Touch. And then Sioux City. And Gary Farmer, who played my cousin in Sioux City, is doing a guest spot for us on Longmire this week. It's a bit schizophrenic because many times, especially in independent films, it's necessary for me to be in the cast as well. And man, that's a big you know, bite to take. And the one thing I love about Tao of Surfing is yes, it does involve surfing, but it's really a relationship movie, a story about, you know, two very close friends and a tragic event in their lives. One of the friends is played by Bailey Chase, my friend from Longmire. The other is played by Eric Balfour, who is a legitimate big wave surfer. I mean, he's just fantastic. And Phil Pfeiffer, my DP, who I go back 30 years to Dallas and then to Young Guns and then to a number of other things, is my DP. So yeah, I tend to like to work, you know, with people that I'm very familiar with and that I've known for a long time.
Okay, well, hey, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to chat with us. Big
Absolutely.
fans here.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it, buddy.